Ladies and gentlemen, let me ask you something right here, right now. How many of you woke up this morning ready to take what's yours, but instead hit that snooze button? Be real with me. See, we've all been there. That voice in your head saying just 5 more minutes turns into 10, then 20, and before you know it, the day's slipping away. But let me tell you something straight. Laziness is a silent killer. It doesn't come in loud. It doesn't knock at your door. It creeps in, wraps you in comfort, and robs you of your dreams without you even knowing it. Laziness isn't just about sitting around doing nothing. It's about missed opportunities, abandoned goals, and dreams you never gave a chance to breathe. You say you want success, but every time you give in to laziness, you're telling your dreams maybe tomorrow. But the truth is, tomorrow never comes for the lazy. Laziness makes promises it never keeps. It whispers, take it easy, there's time, while the people who grind are out there making moves, gaining ground, and getting ahead. And here's the thing, there's always going to be someone hungrier than you, someone willing to outwork you if you let laziness take over. The world doesn't care about potential if you don't activate it. It rewards those who show up, who push through the discomfort, who don't negotiate with that voice saying, rest a little longer, you got to kill that voice. You got to wake up every single day ready to fight for what's yours like your life depends on it, because it does. Laziness will tell you that progress can wait, but let me break this down. It's a thief of time, and time is the one thing you'll never get back. Every day you give in, you fall a little further behind. And listen, nobody ever got where they wanted to be by waiting for motivation to show up. It's not about feeling ready, it's about making a decision. It's about creating habits that align with your goals, even when it's hard, even when it's inconvenient, even when you don't feel like it. You want to level up. Then you got to kill your laziness, not tomorrow. Not next week. Today, right now. Because success doesn't wait for the lazy, it belongs to the ones who refuse to let comfort control their destiny. Laziness thrives on comfort and excuses, and the key to overcoming it is forcing yourself out of the spaces where you feel the safest. Comfort zones are deceptive. They create the illusion of peace and rest, but what they really do is trap you in a cycle of inaction. The more comfortable you become, the less motivated you are to push forward and grow. It's human nature to avoid discomfort, but success demands that you embrace it. Growth happens when you expose yourself to challenges, when you do things that make you feel uneasy or even afraid. Laziness feeds off comfort because it tells you that staying in familiar territory is good enough. But good enough never creates greatness. Those who stay comfortable end up stuck, watching others pass them by. You can't break free from laziness unless you confront the truth that comfort is your enemy. Comfort seduces you into thinking you have all the time in the world, but the reality is, every day spent in comfort is a day wasted. Excuses work hand in hand with comfort to keep you stagnant. Laziness is fueled by the endless list of reasons your mind comes up with for not doing what you need to do. You say you're too tired, too busy, or that you'll start tomorrow, but those are just stories you tell yourself to avoid discomfort. Excuses feel valid in the moment, but they are just barriers you create to avoid responsibility. The truth is, you can either have excuses or results, never both. Every time you give in to an excuse, you reinforce laziness. Excuses are like weeds in a garden. The more you allow them to grow, the harder they are to pull out. Laziness isn't just the act of lying down and doing nothing. It's the slow accumulation of small, seemingly harmless excuses that build into a pattern of inaction. Each excuse may feel insignificant on its own, but together they create a wall that separates you from your goals. Breaking free from laziness requires intentional action. You have to get uncomfortable and make the hard choice to move, even when everything in you wants to stay still. It means saying no to the easy way out and embracing the hard work required to grow. This shift doesn't happen overnight, but it starts with a decision. You need to decide that your goals, your future, and your dreams are worth more than the temporary pleasure of comfort. The process is uncomfortable, but discomfort is where transformation begins. Every time you force yourself to take action, even in the smallest way, you chip away at the hold laziness has on you. You build momentum by taking one step at a time, and with every step you grow stronger. Laziness may call out to you, but with each small victory, you train yourself to ignore its voice. The battle against laziness is fought moment by moment. It's not a one-time event, it's a daily commitment. You have to wake up every day and make the choice to step outside your comfort zone. This might mean waking up earlier, pushing through fatigue, or doing things you don't enjoy in the moment. It's about building the habit of choosing action over inaction. Habits are powerful because they shape your identity over time. The more you practice discipline, the more it becomes a part of who you are. You start to see yourself as someone who takes action, someone who gets things done, no matter how you feel. This identity shift is crucial because it allows you to operate on autopilot when motivation is low. Instead of relying on how you feel, you rely on the habits you've built. These habits act as a shield against laziness, helping you move forward even on the toughest days. Comfort and excuses try to trick you into believing that the perfect time will come to take action. You tell yourself that you'll start once conditions are ideal, once you feel better, or once you have more energy. But the perfect time never arrives. Waiting for the perfect moment is just another form of laziness in disguise. Action creates the conditions for success, not the other way around. The more you act, the more opportunities you create for yourself. Laziness keeps you blind to these opportunities because it convinces you that you need to wait. But success rewards those who move, those who take risks and learn from their mistakes. Waiting for the right moment is like waiting for the rain to stop before planting seeds. If you wait too long, you miss the growing season altogether. You have to start now, even if everything isn't perfect. Laziness also thrives in the absence of urgency. When you feel like there's plenty of time to do something later, you're more likely to procrastinate. But the reality is, time is your most valuable resource and it's slipping away every second. The more time you spend in comfort, the less time you have to chase your goals. Laziness tells you that tomorrow is guaranteed, but it's not. You have to act with urgency, as if every moment counts because it does. Successful people don't wait for tomorrow, they take action today. They understand that time is a gift, not a guarantee. Acting with urgency means recognizing the importance of every single day and refusing to let laziness steal another one. It's about realizing that the opportunity you have today may not come again. When you adopt this mindset, you stop tolerating laziness because you know the cost is too high. Motivation won't always be there, and relying on it is one of the biggest traps when trying to achieve long-term success. Motivation is fleeting, it comes and goes like a spark, unpredictable and temporary. Some mornings you'll wake up ready to conquer the world, and other days you'll struggle to even get out of bed. That's the reality for everyone, no matter how passionate they are about their goals. The problem is that many people wait for motivation to strike before they act, hoping to feel inspired before they make moves. But waiting for motivation is a recipe for stagnation. If your actions are tied to your feelings, you'll find yourself stuck more often than not. Motivation can light the fire, but it can't keep it burning. Success doesn't come from doing things only when you feel motivated. It comes from doing things consistently, especially when you don't feel like it. This is where discipline steps in as the driving force behind real progress. Discipline is the ability to do what needs to be done, regardless of how you feel. It's about building a structure for your life that moves you towards your goals, even when motivation runs dry. Discipline creates a system where your actions are no longer negotiable. It removes the emotional element from the equation, making progress a matter of routine rather than inspiration. Discipline doesn't care if you're tired, frustrated, or bored. It doesn't wait for perfect conditions or the right mood. It demands that you show up every day. This consistency over time is what separates those who succeed from those who merely dream. It's not about how often you feel inspired, it's about how often you act, regardless of how you feel. Discipline teaches you to push through resistance, understanding that action itself generates momentum, even when motivation is absent. One of the reasons people struggle with discipline is that they overestimate the importance of feelings. They think they need to feel motivated to get started, but in reality, action often precedes emotion. The hardest part is usually the beginning, getting out of bed, starting the workout, sitting down to study. But once you take the first step, things begin to shift. Momentum kicks in, and suddenly the task that felt impossible becomes manageable. Discipline teaches you that you don't need to wait to feel ready, you just need to start, and the rest will follow. Over time, these small acts of discipline build into habits, and habits become the foundation for lasting success. When discipline becomes part of who you are, it frees you from the roller coaster of motivation. You no longer rely on fleeting bursts of energy. Instead, you operate on a consistent, steady rhythm that keeps you moving forward no matter what. Discipline also provides clarity in a world full of distractions. When you're disciplined, you know what needs to be done and prioritize it above everything else. You don't waste time waiting for inspiration or searching for shortcuts. You understand that progress comes from doing the work, plain and simple. This clarity allows you to focus your energy on the things that matter most, rather than being pulled in every direction by the latest trends or emotional whims. Discipline simplifies your life by creating a clear path towards your goals. It eliminates unnecessary decisions, saving you mental energy. When you have a disciplined routine, you don't need to debate with yourself every morning about whether to work out or study. You just do it because it's part of your routine. This mental clarity reduces stress and helps you stay focused on the big picture. One of the most powerful things about discipline is that it strengthens over time. The more you practice discipline, the easier it becomes to stay consistent. Every time you choose discipline over comfort, you build a little more mental strength. You prove to yourself that you are capable of doing hard things even when you don't want to. These small victories accumulate, creating a sense of confidence and momentum. Eventually, what once felt like a struggle becomes second nature. Waking up early, exercising, or working on your goals becomes automatic because you've trained yourself to do them without question. Discipline is like a muscle. The more you use it, the stronger it gets. At first, it may feel difficult and unnatural, but with practice, it becomes part of who you are. Another crucial aspect of discipline is that it protects you from setbacks. Life is unpredictable, and challenges are inevitable. There will be days when everything goes wrong, when nothing seems to work out, and motivation is nowhere to be found. On these days, discipline becomes your safety net. Because you've built a routine around consistent action, you'll continue to make progress even when things are tough. Discipline gives you the resilience to keep going when motivation fails. The longer you delay action, the harder it becomes to regain momentum. Inaction is a subtle enemy, creeping in under the guise of rest or waiting for the perfect moment, but in reality, it's just resistance in disguise. Every time you put something off, you're not just delaying progress, you're making it more difficult to start again. There's a psychological cost to inaction. When you push things aside for later, your mind starts building mental barriers. The task begins to feel heavier, more complicated, and more overwhelming than it did initially. Procrastination feeds this cycle, creating a loop where each delay makes the next step harder to take. What could have been a simple task turns into a mountain you feel ill-prepared to climb. And the weight of unfinished work becomes a burden that grows with time. Momentum is everything when it comes to progress. Think about how much easier it feels to keep going once you've already started. The hardest part is always the beginning, starting to work out, opening the book, making the first move. But once you've taken that first step, you create a rhythm that carries you forward. Momentum generates energy, and energy makes it easier to keep going. The opposite is also true. When you stop, even for a short time, you lose that energy, and it becomes much harder to restart. The pause breaks your rhythm, and restarting requires more effort than simply continuing would have. This is why taking breaks or delaying tasks can be dangerous if you're not intentional about how you handle them. It's easy to convince yourself that you'll pick things up again soon, but soon often turns into days, weeks, or even months. Time has a way of compounding the effects of both action and inaction. Every time you act, you're building forward momentum, even if the steps are small. Those small steps accumulate over time, leading to bigger progress. But every time you delay, you're building resistance. Resistance makes it harder to start again, not just because you lose momentum, but because your mind becomes more accustomed to inaction. You start normalizing the idea of putting things off, and before you know it, procrastination becomes a habit. The more you delay, the more difficult it becomes to break out of that habit, and the cycle feeds itself. What starts as a small delay grows into a long-term pattern that's hard to reverse. This is why small actions, even imperfect ones, are so important. They keep the momentum alive, preventing resistance from taking hold. One of the challenges of regaining momentum after a period of inaction is the mental burden of guilt. When you delay something important, it doesn't just sit in the background, it lingers in your mind, creating stress and anxiety. You know you should be doing something, and that awareness weighs on you, making it even harder to act. The longer you wait, the heavier that guilt becomes. It's a vicious cycle where the guilt makes you feel overwhelmed, and that overwhelm makes you avoid the task even more. The key to breaking this cycle is recognizing that action is the only antidote. No matter how small the step, taking action reduces the weight of guilt and begins to rebuild momentum. Perfectionism is one of the biggest culprits behind delayed action. Many people delay starting because they believe they need the perfect plan, the perfect timing, or the perfect conditions. But waiting for perfection is just another form of procrastination. The truth is, there will never be a perfect time, and no plan will ever be flawless. Progress is messy, and success comes from starting where you are with what you have. The longer you wait for everything to be perfect, the more time you waste. Each moment spent waiting is a moment that could have been used to move forward. Inaction under the guise of perfectionism is just a fear of failure in disguise. It's safer to wait than to risk making mistakes, but mistakes are part of the process. Momentum builds not from perfect action, but from consistent, imperfect action. There's also a psychological principle called activation energy, which refers to the initial energy required to start something. The first step is always the hardest because it demands more energy than the steps that follow. Once you overcome that initial resistance, the effort required to keep going decreases significantly. This is why small actions like setting out your workout clothes the night before or writing the first sentence of a project can make a big difference. They lower the activation energy needed to start, making it easier to build momentum. But the longer you delay that first step, the more activation energy you'll need later. Delays create mental friction, making the task feel larger and more daunting than it actually is. Taking immediate action, no matter how small, reduces that friction and makes it easier to continue. Inaction also erodes self-confidence. When you delay something important, you send a message to yourself that you're not capable of handling it. Over time, this undermines your belief in your own abilities. You start questioning whether you have what it takes, and that doubt makes it even harder to take action. Momentum, on the other hand, builds confidence. Every small victory reinforces your belief that you can do hard things, even when you don't feel like it. Confidence is not something you wait for, it's something you create through action. Each time you take a step forward, no matter how small, you strengthen your belief in yourself. This belief becomes the fuel that keeps you going, even when challenges arise. There's also a powerful connection between momentum and identity. The more consistently you act, the more you begin to see yourself as someone who takes action. This identity shift is crucial for long-term success because it changes the way you think about yourself. When you identify as someone who takes action, you're less likely to delay. You become the kind of person who gets things done, even when it's hard. This shift in identity creates a positive feedback loop. Each action reinforces your identity, and your identity reinforces your actions. But the opposite is also true. When you delay action, you reinforce the identity of someone who procrastinates, making it harder to change. Breaking free from the cycle of delayed action requires a mindset shift. You have to stop thinking about tasks as things you'll do later and start treating them as things you'll do now. The present moment is the only moment you truly have. And waiting for later is just an excuse to avoid discomfort. This shift in thinking requires intentionality. It means recognizing when you're falling into the trap of procrastination and choosing to act instead. The longer you practice this mindset, the easier it becomes to take action without hesitation. You start building a habit of acting in the moment, which keeps your momentum alive and your progress on track. Momentum is not something that happens by accident. It's something you create through deliberate action. It's about choosing to act, even when it feels uncomfortable or inconvenient. Every time you act, you're sending a message to yourself and to the world that you're serious about your goals. You're proving that you're not just someone who dreams, but someone who does. This commitment to action creates a powerful sense of purpose and direction. It builds a foundation of progress that grows stronger with each step you take. And as momentum builds, the effort required to keep going decreases. What once felt difficult becomes easy, and what once felt impossible becomes achievable. Laziness thrives when comfort becomes the priority. The allure of taking it easy, resting for just a little longer, or choosing leisure over work can quickly turn into a habit that erodes discipline. It's not just about being physically inactive. Mental laziness plays an equally damaging role. The mind gets comfortable with excuses, rationalizing why things can be put off or why today isn't the right day to make a move. This pattern of thinking becomes a trap that slowly dulls ambition and drive. Laziness creeps in silently, starting small, but if left unchecked, it grows into a barrier that keeps you from becoming who you could be. The challenge is that comfort feels good in the moment, and the mind is wired to seek pleasure and avoid pain. Hard work, by its nature, feels uncomfortable, so the lazy mind justifies avoiding it by telling itself that there's always tomorrow. Laziness isn't just a surface-level issue, it's rooted in fear. Often people are lazy not because they lack ambition, but because they are afraid of failure, rejection, or discomfort. The mind convinces itself that staying where it's comfortable is safer than stepping into the unknown. This fear is subtle but powerful. It manifests as procrastination, avoidance, and hesitation. Laziness becomes a shield to protect against the risk of trying and failing. It's easier to say, "I'll do it later," than to confront the possibility of not succeeding. But this avoidance comes at a high cost. Every time you delay action out of fear, you strengthen the habit of inaction. It becomes easier to put things off the next time, and before you know it, laziness is taking control. One of the biggest challenges with laziness is that it's self-reinforcing. The more you give in to laziness, the harder it becomes to break free from it. Each time you choose comfort over effort, you're training your brain to prioritize short-term pleasure over long-term rewards. Your brain becomes accustomed to the easy path, and anything that requires effort starts to feel overwhelming. This is why small acts of laziness can quickly spiral into a lifestyle of mediocrity. Laziness doesn't announce itself loudly, it slips in through the cracks of daily life. It's the extra snooze button, the skip workout, the delayed project. These small decisions seem insignificant on their own, but over time, they accumulate into a pattern that defines your reality. One way to break free from laziness is to focus on building momentum. Momentum is the antidote to laziness because it makes action easier over time. The hardest part of any task is the beginning, starting the workout, opening the book, or making the first move. But once you get going, the task becomes more manageable. Action generates energy, and energy creates more action. This is why even a small step in the right direction can make a huge difference. It doesn't matter if the step is perfect or if it feels significant. What matters is that it keeps you moving forward. Each action builds on the one before it, creating a snowball effect that makes progress inevitable. Another effective strategy for overcoming laziness is to eliminate distractions and temptations. Laziness thrives in an environment full of easy alternatives to hard work. Social media, TV, and other forms of instant gratification provide quick dopamine hits that make productive activities seem less appealing. When your mind is constantly bombarded with distractions, it becomes harder to focus on meaningful tasks. This is why it's essential to create an environment that supports your goals. Remove or limit access to things that tempt you to be lazy. Set boundaries around your time and energy. Create routines that make it easier to stay on track. Discipline becomes much easier when the path of least resistance aligns with your goals. Laziness also feeds off of indecision. The longer you take to decide on a course of action, the more likely you are to do nothing. When faced with too many options or uncertainty about the right path, the brain defaults to inaction. This is where the concept of imperfect action becomes powerful. You don't need to have everything figured out to start. Waiting for the perfect plan is just another form of procrastination. The truth is that clarity often comes through action, not before it. The process of doing reveals what works and what doesn't. Each step forward, even if it's messy or imperfect, provides feedback that guides your next move. Overcoming laziness requires learning to embrace discomfort. Growth only happens outside of your comfort zone, and the pursuit of comfort is the enemy of progress. This doesn't mean you need to live in a constant state of struggle, but it does mean you need to get comfortable being uncomfortable.